So we've talked about the physical regulation of your body, but now we want to help you think about your sensory and your emotional regulation as well. So sensory regulation is about how well you read the sensations that come from outside your body in your environment and also from inside your body as well. So it might not be something that feels super relevant to you, but actually we find again and again that neurodivergent people like you have lots of sensory particularities or ways that they have preferences for their sensory environment. And that's huge variation that exists out there, but it makes a big difference to how well you can regulate yourself in different contexts. And so there are obviously different sorts of senses, and some of them are really obvious, like how you smell and sight and sound, but some of them are less commonly understood. So, for example, proprioception, which is about pressure sensations, vestibular, which is about movement, and also tactile, so about like the physical, how something feels when you touch it. So people can both be overstimulated and understimulated. So I think it really helps to think of it as like a cup. So some people's cups, they're so overstimulated that they are pretty close to overflowing, and just adding a teeny bit more will completely overwhelm them. So like maybe completely floods them, and so they can no longer feel the sensations properly because they're just completely overwhelmed. So it could be that even just the smallest little extra sensation, like that really, really scratchy label, or perhaps a flickering light completely derails you because you're so close and so on the edge all the time. And for others, we get the opposite, which is quite understimulated. And so that can be that their cup has got barely anything at all. And so if you add something more, well, then they can finally actually feel the sensations and feel connected to their environment. So, for example, we sometimes think about it like when you fall asleep at night, you might sleep funny. When you wake up, your hand just like feels like it's gone to sleep. You need to get lots of movement and stretch into it in order to feel that sensation properly and to feel present and know where you are. So, what does it feel like being over or understimulated? So, the best example I can think of for being overstimulated is like Christmas shopping when you totally forgot into the last minute. And now you go in and there's millions of people rushing around and crashing into you. And there's announcements over the tannoys and loud Christmas music and flickering light and someone squealing with excitement. And you just completely shut down. You know, you might be feeling so anxious and irritated, so tense. You just want to escape. You want to leave. And perhaps you might close your eyes or cover your ears, or you just want to get out of there. So that's what that overstimulated can feel like. To someone who's understimulated in the same environment, they might actually just feel really giddy and excited. That's exactly where they want to be in all that Christmas magic and excitement. So at the other end of the spectrum, we think about someone who is understimulated, and they are in an environment which doesn't excite them. So perhaps they are sitting on a beach and they're not doing anything, and they just think, oh, I'm bored, just feel uninspired, everything's just very flat emotionally. You just kind of feel a bit stuck, like there's nothing for you to do. Um, Whereas someone who gets overstimulated finds lying on the beach like completely relaxing. That actually very gentle stimulation, watching the waves, feeling the sand is just what they need to feel right and normal. So you can see how there's such a lot of variation between people who feel over and understimulated. And in fact, you could feel both at the same time or different contexts. But it's a really useful way of thinking about your own sensations. So these might be more familiar sensory types that you might have heard of before, but just to think about it in terms of the over and understimulated. So visual, being oversensitive, might be like you just want to close your eyes and that you feel like, you know, you get a headache because everything's so bright in your face or there's too much movement. And auditory, it might be it's just too noisy. And then the other side of that could be visually, you might find detail really interesting, and you might want to really look and explore things really carefully, or have a real strong sense of what looks attractive. And you might be have a really keen sense of sound and like to enjoy listening to music loudly. So there's different ways that you can be over and understimulated. Olfactory and gustatory are often really well connected because they're about taste and all those sorts of things when you're eating food. Some people completely oversensitive to it, and actually they really just want the same food every single day. They don't want excitement. They don't want to deal with the kids' messes. They want things to be really straightforward, and not have any new experiences. But some people, the other end, want to have things that are really flavoursome and exciting in terms of how they smell or taste as well. So these three senses might be new to you because they're like not thought about as much. So the examples here are sort of tactile. Perhaps you really like the feel of a certain fabric, and you love to be like in a snuggly soft cardigan all the time. Or perhaps you're someone that's super sensitive to like a really scratchy label. Proprioception is about pressure sensations. So that might be how much you love a really, really big, strong, squeezy cuddle and how much that relaxes you. Or perhaps you're someone that just really hates being touched. And the last one is vestibular, which is about balance and movement. So some people are always on the move and jumping and spinning and just literally can't sit still, whereas others would just prefer to sort of sit very quietly and still in a corner. So all those different examples of maybe perhaps under or overstimulation around those different areas. So tactile about the feel of something, proprioception about the pressure sensations, and vestibular, which is about balance. The last sensation, which you've almost definitely not heard of, is called interoception. And this is about how well your body reads its own sensations. So things such as temperature, how hungry you are, how thirsty you are, if you need the toilet. All of those things are about you reading your own sensations. And some people are really sensitive to it, and some people don't notice it and then suddenly realize they need the loo. And some sort of equivalence to that is like if you've got a stomach bug and then you just think to yourself, oh, my stomach's gurgling. Does that mean I need the loo? Does that mean that I'm starving? Does that mean I never want to eat again? Or does that mean I'm going to go be sick? And sometimes you can't even tell. So sometimes the other sensations that you experience can completely overwhelm your system so that you don't notice the sensations coming from your own body. And that's what we call interoception. Interoception can also affect how well you read your emotions. Because, for example, if you think about like, oh, the chills went up my spine or my blood ran cold, that's actually about the internal sensations of emotions. So being able to recognize your interoception can really help with your regulation. That was probably a bit of a whirlwind tour about sensory processing needs. And if it's a new topic for you, I imagine that might be a little bit overwhelming. But we'd really invite you at this point to take a moment and do this worksheet about sensory profile to really spend some time understanding your particular over and under sensitivities, or where you might be both under and oversensitive, because that will help you know how to respond and regulate as well. So once you've done that, the next thing that's really important to know is what to do about it. So that's what the next bit is about. So now you understand more about your own sensory needs and preferences. What can you do about it? So the easy answer is you just change your environment. If something is overstimulated, then you step away. You find a way of taking that out of your life or reducing that sensation. If you're understimulated, then you look for those novel experiences somewhere else. So you're trying to change your environment in order to match you better in terms of your own sensory preferences. However, it's not that easy as a parent, and there are many reasons why. It's actually very hard to control your environment when you're a parent, because children are unpredictable. They're noisy in terms of sensory sensations. You've got to deal with pooey nappies and snotty, sick children and splashy baths and children yelling and Lego bricks spilt all over the floor, even though you cleaned it up 2 minutes ago. Maybe even assemblies in very, very echoey halls, or the worst experience for neurodivergent parents, which is soft play birthday parties. So all of those things are environments that you can't really control. And you have to do them because you're trying to put your child first. But there are ways that you can make some changes to that and create a little bit more give and take so that you can meet your own sensory needs whilst also meeting the needs of your child. So here are our top tips for neurodivergent parents thinking about managing their sensory processing needs. So first, you really do need to spend the time recognizing how you respond to the sensory demands and how they differ across different social contexts that you might experience in a day, a week, or a month. Something that you should definitely do is really work out what you absolutely cannot tolerate. And more often than not, there is a way around it. It can be through delegation. perhaps there is a grandparent who would love to go to the show in the echoey school assembly. Or maybe there's another parent that would take your child to the soft play birthday party, and then you can have a play date in the park that feels more manageable to you in a big open space. So it is about trying to create a little bit more of that give and take. Most importantly, you need to be able to monitor yourself. So it's about just that all the work that you're currently putting in by doing this course, keep checking in with yourself and keep saying, is it something I can manage? If not, what is it that I can change? And a phrase that I use all the time is talking about authentic breaks. So a break for one person is not the same as a break for somebody else. So it's about recognizing what feels like a genuine break for you so that you can regulate. And so maybe that means creating a break before an event to build up a bit more capacity that you can tolerate a bit more. And then maybe also sandwich it afterwards with more authentic breaks, like you've put in everything you can, and now it's time for the kids to have a bit of time on the iPad so you can bring yourself back down again. As I said before, the biggest thing is just understanding yourself so that you can actually make changes in your life. And that's what you're doing here. So this worksheet task that we invite you to do is about sensory regulation as a neurodivergent parent, and just trying to work out some of those nuances of the sensory experiences that you have as a parent, and the challenges that are there, and some sort of ideas that you can have some problem solving to try and reduce that demand on yourself so you can balance you and your child's needs.